After the past 3 videos I've uploaded, where the total runtime of content is over 4 hours long, I figured for today's video I'd dial it back a little bit with the duration here and tell you guys a story about a band that's been documented a handful of times already here on the internet, but nevertheless it's still a really interesting story to discuss, that all being about Batushka. For those who are unaware, Batushka is a Polish black metal band from the city of Białystok. They formed in the year 2015, and during that same year, towards the end of 2015, December, they released their debut full-length album, Liturgia. Within a very short and quick amount of time, this album received an astronomical amount of positive feedback from the black metal fan base. Evidence of this can be on websites like Bandcamp, Rate Your Music, and even the Metal Archives, where reviews and critical response were stating that this was one of the best black metal releases of its year in 2015. Because of the positive feedback that it got from fans, commercially it did exceptionally well, as albums and merchandise would basically sell out as quick as they were posted up. Musically, this album is black metal at its foundation and core. All the attributes and components you're used to hearing, you'll find it on this album on the extreme metal portions of it. However, what I really do believe led to the success of this album, as a lot of people have fascination with it, is all of the unorthodox components you'll hear on it. Those components being choirs and choruses sung in the Church Slavonic language, deeply tied to and inspired by the practices you would hear in the Eastern Orthodox Church. Stylistically, this album isn't really anything groundbreaking or new, even for its time in 2015, as the ideas of blending extreme metal with chants and choirs was done even years prior, and even the black metal portions, as I stated, if we were to focus on the guitars, the bass, the drum, and the vocals, it's by the numbers. However, what makes it so effective is how all the chants and choirs fill in the gaps of all the spaces and flows with the melodies and compositions of this album, as basic as it is for black metal standards. Thus, what we end up getting when we listen to, and I think it really sold a lot of people, is this strong spiritual yet angelic-like effect. And that approach with those effects would be amplified all the more a year later in 2016 when they started to do live performances. Now, during this time, from 2016 up until 2018, the identities of the members of Batushka remained anonymous. However, what became known very quickly about them is whenever they did live shows, their performances would be quite the sight to behold, as they would go all out with their stage attire. I'm sure everyone watching this video right now is aware of the live performances and appearance that Batushka has, whether it be individuals who have seen them firsthand perform live physically, to other individuals like myself who have only experienced their live performance through a YouTube video. Regardless, their overall stage performance plays a really big vital role into how their music is really effective when you start connecting it with the aesthetics, presentation, lyrics, context with the album Liturgia, as both the visuals and music of Batushka tries to capture the culture of the Eastern Orthodox Church in every little aspect that it can. Examples of this in the visual department would be the very large, extravagant, and detailed robes that the members of Batushka wear during their live performances, having a strong resemblance to the robes that the Eastern Orthodox monks would wear. The only difference being that the outfits of Batushka has some designs of skulls and bones, I guess, to kind of play within the aesthetics of metal there, but everything else, even the capes, hoods, and vests, all have striking resemblance to whenever Batushka starts their live performances. They'll always have at least one member come out swinging a thurible lit with incense, which is identical to that to whenever a priest starts mass, along with the dozens upon dozens of candles lit all around the stage whenever Batushka performs, which is similar to that of the multitude of candles lit during mass as it's supposed to represent the ever ongoing presence of Jesus Christ and his divinity as he is the light of the world. To all of the religious artwork and imagery you're seeing put up on stage, otherwise known as icons, again, something you would find in a church. To even the vocalist, he's singing in front of a podium, which is typically what priests do when they're conducting mass. Which all the visuals work cohesively with the concept of their debut full-length album. Examples of this can be found on the album Liturgia, that when you translate to English, that's liturgy. A liturgy, by the way, is a public display of a religious ritual being performed, just like, Sunday Mass. To even these song titles, when you translate them to English, it's a litany. A litany being a structured prayer. There's 8 tracks on the album, representing 8 litanies, numbered with song titles that represent the context of it, such as cleansing, blessing, wisdom, grace, holy entrance, hope, truth, and finally, salvation. Oh, and I also forgot to mention, the band name Batushka is in reference to the word father that you would use to address a priest in the Eastern Orthodox Church. With everything I've talked about thus far pertaining to Batushka, from their debut full-length album up to the year of 2018 with their live performances that led to their success story, is it stretches on so much more than it just being a successful gimmick for a black metal band. What they were able to do just so well is capture the culture of the Eastern Orthodox Church in so many different ways, whether it be their visuals and aesthetics, to the language and music, to the overall atmosphere. It's something of a work of art in of itself in terms of the concept, no matter which way you look at it. I'm jumping way ahead of myself here in this story, but next year at the Maryland Death Fest 2026, Batushka was announced, and my wife already bought tickets way in advance because, to be honest, she's more excited for next year's Maryland Death Fest than I am. And as cool as it will be to see Havoc-Karunu, Stargazer, The Obliteration of Humanity, or Hell Butcher, and even Pig Destroyer played Prowler in the Yard in full, one thing I am genuinely excited to just see in the flesh is Batushka perform with all of their stage antics and aesthetics that they're known for. But getting back to the main subject here, the pure bliss of success would come to a screeching halt towards the end of 2018 into the year of 2019, when inner conflict and greed took hold of the band. There was a video posted on the YouTube channel by Krzysztof Jabakowski explaining the whole situation. Just at face value, this video is quite significant, considering the fact that this is one of, if not the first time, one of the band members revealed themselves to the public. But as the story goes with this controversy, it's stated by Krzysztof Jabakowski that everything of Batushka comes from his ideas, as he's the mastermind behind it all. Whether it be the album artwork, songwriting, mixing and mastering, to the overall image that Batushka presents, all of it stems from his ideas. With all the success they got from their debut full-length album Liturgia, there was a high demand for the band to have a follow-up album, which, according to Krzysztof, there was a new album in the works. The only problem being there was a slight delay on it, mainly having to do with the fact that he was stuck in the studio having to produce the album, considering he felt as if it didn't really live up to the standards and expectations that he would want for an upcoming Batushka album. Thus, again, there was this slight delay. And this is where their vocalist at the time, Bart, took full control over the band, considering the fact as well he also owned the label Witching Hour Productions, which Batushka was signed to during this time. With Bart taking complete control over the band, going behind the back of Krzysztof, he was able to get Batushka to a record deal on with Metal Blade without the consent of Krzysztof at this point, and even leaving Krzysztof to hang dry as he blocked him away from all of Batushka's social media platforms such as Facebook and Instagram. Hence why Krzysztof did this YouTube video announcing to everyone what was going on behind the scenes. Even with all of this controversy happening, it doesn't change the fact that all the material that Krzysztof wrote was still in the studio being ready to be released. Hence why in the year of 2019, what ended up happening was we got two Batushka albums, but by two different Batushkas. Going from personal experiences here, but I remember back in 2019, there was a lot of confusion among the fan base as to who was the correct Batushka to listen to here. But it seemed like the fan base figured it out rather quickly, as when you start comparing the two albums, there's a noticeable difference in terms of songwriting and quality between the two. Of the two albums that were released, if you were to listen to the album titled Parody, which was Bart's Batushka in 2019, you'll notice that the production value is nowhere as defined as it was on the album Liturgia, as everything is so overly compressed that when you hear the instrumentation on this album, it's so airtight that there's no room to breathe with anything you're hearing being played on the album. You compare that with the other Batushka album titled Parody, you'll notice that the production is just as defined as the debut album Liturgia, and the songwriting and overall composition has all the choirs, choruses, instrumentation, and songwriting that has a strong resemblance to quality to that to Liturgia. So again, for a lot of the fans that already fell in love with the first album by Batushka, they started figuring out really quickly who was the true Batushka here. It's also worth mentioning that even the marketing between these two albums was vastly different, as when you look at Parody, again, Bart's Batushka here, is that every single song had a music video attached with it. And all of these music videos were really high budget, really bringing forth more of the glitz and glam to present Batushka to be this band that needs to be, paid attention to. They're trying to sell you something with high value, which was extremely uncharacteristic when you consider the fact that the original thought process for Batushka was their marketing really didn't exist. They were trying to be this anonymous band to just present the music and compositions of Batushka and really not try to persuade you any which way else to enjoy the music that they showcase. Whereas when it comes to the album Parody, done by Krzysztof's Batushka, is all they did was they uploaded the whole album on the Batushka YouTube channel, and that was it. Oh, and it's also worth mentioning here that these are somewhat some rumors and stories that I've heard, but it's still kind of funny that I felt like it needed to be talked about, is that during the year in 2019 when this whole debacle was going on, is that when Bart was in control of all of Batushka's merchandise and sales, if you were to buy their album Liturgia off of him and not the album that they did in 2019, what would end up happening would be Bart would either delay your order, regardless if it was a CD, a vinyl, or a shirt, again pertaining to their album Liturgia, hoping that you would either cancel your order, or if he did ship out your order, for example, say you bought a record of Liturgia off of Bart, he would ship it out in a package, and instead of getting your LP, what ended up being in that package was just trash and garbage, apparently, showcasing, I guess, a bit of frustration by Bart that his own record that he created wasn't selling as well. Again, these are all rumors and stories that I've heard, but I just figured it'd be funny to include here. But hands down, the most comedic thing that came from this conflict between the two Batushkas was the metal scene at this time was really enthralled with the idea of multiple Batushkas. Thus, what we ended up getting was dozens upon dozens of parody bands capitalizing on the Batushka craze. So much so that I believe it's estimated that there's roughly around 36 parody bands of Batushka, and I just wanted to talk about for a brief moment some of my personal favorites that I found to be quite humorous. One of the parodies called Batushka 6, which jokingly stated that they were from Kazakhstan, which ended up being not true other than to just add to the humorous parody value of it. But it's the poorly drawn album artwork that just really gets me here, which is clearly a parody of the album Parody. Then there's Gabatushka, which is a more of an experimental take of all the Batushka parodies, as they only did one song that's 2.5 minutes long, but it's a mixture of hardcore techno and gabber over all of the black metal instrumentation that you're used to hearing. Batushka, which is all about anime and weeaboo subculture, and from what I was able to gather, all of the songs that they did do are covers of anime intros. And my personal favorite of the bunch is Babushka, which is just simply Russian for the word grandmother. As for the other parodies, I'll leave a link in the description to a post that has all of the bands provided and linked to all of their music. But as the jokes and parodies came and went, it was still a really serious situation between Krzysztof and Bart when it came to the legal battle of Batushka. And even before the legal battle took place, Bart was facing a lot of backlash among the fan base, as when it came to the music videos that were uploaded on the Metal Blade YouTube page, all of the likes and dislikes ratio were turned off, and even the comments were shut off as well, clearly showcasing that all the negative feedback was getting to him, to even the point that all of the merchandise for the new Batushka that Bart created was struggling to sell. As for the court battle, Krzysztof ended up suing Bart for all of the legal rights and intellectual properties of the band Batushka. Krzysztof would end up winning this legal battle because on June 2024, he would share a court document on his social media stating that he won his legal battle and all the rights of Batushka belongs to him now. Which, because of Bart losing that legal battle, he had to change his band's name of Batushka to now what it's referred to today as Patriarckh, which he ended up re-releasing the album that he did back in 2019 under the name Patriarckh, and even released a new album earlier this year back in January. As for this new band, Patriarckh, it seems like there really isn't any more backlash whenever they upload or talk about music, as all the comments tend to be a bit more favorable or positive. Even the music is a bit better in terms of quality when it comes to the mixing and mastering and production, to the overall songwriting feels a bit more fleshed out. And I feel like now everyone's kind of just moving on past all of this controversy, and at least even the fans too are starting to enjoy this music, just appreciating it for just owning up to the fact that now they're their own thing, not trying to steal off the thunder of Batushka and creating their own destiny with Patriarckh. It is worth mentioning now, out of all times, that when people ask, is this the right or true Batushka, whenever you were to see any kind of like flyers for a live show or upcoming albums, simply put, it is the true Batushka now that Krzysztof does, as he has his own label that he runs all for Batushka, and after this court settlement, there really is now only just one Batushka that exists. End of the day, for a lot of fans, justice was served. Former, current, and new members of Batushka and Patriarckh are now focusing on their own projects and endeavors. Batushka is still touring to this day, and you can able to catch them at next year's Maryland Death Fest, along with every other show that they will probably announce with all the success that they've gotten. And for a lot of people, it seems, with the controversy surrounding Batushka, it's all water under the bridge now. As for my closing remarks, going on more of a personal note here, the reason why just out of nowhere I decided to do a video on Batushka out of all times is because over the past handful of months, my wife and I have been really interested with Poland, considering the fact that we're going to take a vacation there in 2 months for 3 weeks, which I'm looking really forward to. But during this time, just learning about Poland and its culture and history, since we're both big black metal fans, she always asks me about like what Polish black metal is out there, and I tell her stuff like Mgła, Kriegsmachine, Culte Ghouls, and Evil Feast. And one band she consistently brings up to me is always Batushka, wondering if I'll ever do a video on them, considering the fact that before her and I ever dated or met, she used to watch my YouTube channel on the regular, which is just crazy to think about, and still does to this day, which is even crazier. But she always wanted me to do a video on Batushka since she's such a big fan of them. And I figured since we're just consistently talking about Poland, taking a vacation there, and other plans which I don't want to jump the gun on just yet, I figured now's a better time than ever for my own personal experiences to do a video about these guys. And other than that, that'll do it for this video. So like always, links provided to everything I talked about will be in the description below. Really curious to know what you think of Batushka and the whole controversy surrounding them. And other than that, that is it. So like always guys, make sure you guys drink plenty of water to stay hydrated and have a great day.